The latest whispers, things ain't what they're supposed to be. Can Pep buy his way out of trouble? Jose currently holds the aces in the Manchester matchup, but will he spend to stay ahead? And what about us? Easy to forget they're moving in mid-table too. We find out who and where. Hello, welcome to Football Whispers, your best guide anywhere to the transfer market, thanks to a computer-driven index, which means we can back our news via the appliance of science. That and a bit of expert comment too, this time from the Mirror Group's transfer specialist Tom Hopkinson, and alongside him Liverpool, Spurs and now Football Whispers stalwart Paul Walsh. Let's start with Manchester City, and the ride is getting ever bumpier for Pep Guardiola. There's no doubt he'll be given time to live up to the, let's face it, incredible hype, but will he hasten the process by reaching for his owner's wallet? Reporter Graham Hunter knows Guardiola well. In fact, he's just about to premiere a documentary charting the Guardiola and Barcelona story. We asked him to pinpoint the players the City boss will have in his sights.
What Football Whispers knows is that Pep Guardiola hasn't enjoyed finding out the limitations of his current squad. Expect the summer transfer market, because strategically Manchester City have chosen not to buy unless there's an unmissable deal in this market, to be the place that he corrects that. Starting with centre-backs and full-backs, you must look at Lucas Hernandez, French-born, Spanish nationality, plays at Atletico Madrid. Manchester City already made an offer for Lucas Hernandez and his brother Theo. It was turned down by Atletico, but the 20-year-old isn't getting enough football. I would expect Lucas Hernandez to end up at Manchester City. Weigl, Dortmund, distributor. As organised as Sergio Busquets was in Guardiola's Barcelona team, super passing range, clever footballer, totally compatible with Gundogan, an antidote to the ills of using the ball, holding the ball and clever positioning in Manchester City's current midfield. Van Dijk, there's a straight punch out between Liverpool, which is where he was minded to go, and Manchester City for this defender who not only knows the Premier League but passes well, is comfortable on the ball and will be a perfect partner to bring Stones through. Alaba, if he could be eased out of Bayern Munich, is the ideal footballer for Pep Guardiola. Can play at either full-back role or in centre-back or in central midfield. How he gets Alaba out of Bayern Munich is down to the Sheiks, the owners, Txiki Begiristain, the football director, but he stands out as the single most important player Pep Guardiola could buy. Expect them to be in for Valencia's Cancelo, right back. Txiki Begiristain, Manchester City's football director, was in Valencia this week with their director of football at Valencia, Alex Sanko, Begiristain's old Barcelona 1992 European Cup winning colleague. They were talking about him, about Gaia, the left back. Finally, you have to look at Aubameyang. Dortmund don't want to let their viciously fast striker go. Real Madrid are in for him, but so are Manchester City. Tall, fast, a goal machine, able to close down defenders and tie defenders up. Something that Pep Guardiola wants to see and doesn't see enough for Aguero. Look at those names: Van Dijk, Alaba, Weigl, Cancelo, Lucas Hernandez and Aubameyang. See you soon.
Now, thanks to Graham. Now, if there are moves afoot, Pep isn't exactly denying it. He says this whole season is effectively a period of assessment.
Of course. We're going to analyze the level of the quality of the players in terms of how did they play in that season for the next season, of course.
Of course it is. Now, we've taken a look at the City formation that has given Pep cause to panic of late and highlighted three areas where there is room for improvement. One pundit reckons Claudio Bravo actually makes himself look smaller when danger calls. He could be replaced by Kasper Schmeichel, Milan's Gino Donnarumma, or see Geronimo Rulli recalled from Real Sociedad. Possible replacements for Gael Clichy at left-back include Southampton's Ryan Bertrand, or Ben Davies or Danny Rose from Spurs. And we reckon Fernandinho is also prone. Potential targets include Sporting's William Carvalho and Steven Nzonzi, who's currently plying his trade with Sevilla. When Spurs get to the Etihad on Saturday, they'll be lining up against a side which costs 4 times as much, although the likely Tottenham bench is actually worth more. When you total up every player on display, you can see that Guardiola's team is currently worth more than twice as much as Pochettino's. Well, he's always had the money to spend, has Pep, but do you think he'll be spending it rather earlier than planned?
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to see what he does. I mean, it's interesting to hear him talking about this season being one where he has a look at what the team can do. We've known he was coming. He's known he was coming to Manchester City for so long. That why has he not done that? Why did he not assess everyone and know them intimately before he came in? You know exactly everything they could give to the club. I do think he's got a lot of business to have to get done. The heart of that defence has been really troubling for him. Both full-back positions as well. We've got players on both flanks ageing. So yeah, I think we'll be seeing different.
No pun intended there. The heart, that defence.
Well, no, and as far as mistakes go, that's looking like the most catastrophic that any manager has made this season.
Yeah, I mean, all the players that they're linked with, and certainly goalkeepers. I still feel that Joe Hart's probably still better than all of those for me. But he'd have to eat massive humble pie to get him back in and realise that he made a mistake, and I can't see him doing that. So he probably will spend more money and replace the goalkeeper. It just isn't good enough. And at the back, it is an issue. You know, John Stones for me still is nowhere near what people have been hyping him up to be. Otamendi, I mean, rugged centre half, but you know, I suppose once the level's been set with Vincent Kompany and the success they had before, he's got big boots to fill and he's not quite doing it. Fernandinho, I like Fernandinho, so that's only my personal opinion. Obviously, this is down to Pep and what he sees changing. And up front, Aguero, he's left him out a few times. What does that actually mean? Does that mean he's not as big a fan as everybody else? Does that mean that Aguero doesn't close down like Guardiola wants from the front? Does that mean that's why Aubameyang's maybe mentioned from Dortmund? So there's only, we're trying to second guess what Pep Guardiola is thinking, and that's not straightforward. But he's struggling, and I don't buy into his interview.
Yeah, how much is pride a problem here? Because when you take on someone like Jose or Pep, you are getting class, but you're also getting a lot of pride, and that could be getting in the way here.
A lot of pride, a lot of ego. I mean, this is the beauty of being a multimillionaire, not only a multiple trophy winner, but a multimillionaire that you can say, look, this is my philosophy, this is the way I like to play the game. And if you don't like it, it doesn't matter. I'll take my toys and I'll go somewhere else where they do want to indulge me in everything that I want to do. You think back to when Manuel Pellegrini came in and they were very open, weren't they, about the fact that it was 5 trophies in 5 seasons. I think that was the key quote from the first one. Now, Pep Guardiola, in his first season in charge, is very much in a position where City could be struggling to win any trophy this time out. So he has to make changes. Yeah. And looking at the price, the money that has been spent by Manchester City on their starting lineup compared to that Tottenham starting lineup, what Pep Guardiola would give to have the youthfulness of Tottenham's team in his ranks right now, I don't think you could have put a price on that.
I mean, there's only Danny Rose that's worth changing over for Cliche, in my opinion. The other two, I wouldn't go there. You know, and so in certain areas, and you probably could be better in the full-back area. Van Dijk, you know, go and spend, if you're going to go and spend 100 million, spend it on them too. But, you know, I don't know the foreign players as well. You know, that's why we had Tom Hunter on, because he knows that side of Spain much better than I do. But they may well improve Manchester City, but I don't know them well enough.
They seem to be lacking leadership. That's the problem for me, and that's come with Vincent Kompany being out for so long. There doesn't seem to be anyone. Kompany's almost got that British mentality when he plays the game. You know, he knows when to get stuck in. He knows when to cajole his teammates. He knows when perhaps they need a little arm round the shoulder to bring them on, and they just seem to be lacking that. They've got some terrific footballers, the likes of De Bruyne, Aguero, of course, but they're just, since Kompany got injured and since Touré started doing whatever it is Yaya Touré was doing in the summer that led his agent to start talking the way he did and led to the fallout with Guardiola, they've just lacked that sort of focal point that you need to build a team around for me.
But when you look at the two sides, he can buy his way out of trouble. I don't know if he wants to buy his way out of trouble. He looks at Spurs and thinks, I wish I could buy that team spirit.
Well, normally when things get difficult, that's when team spirit gets tested. And I don't know how much team spirit massively exists in a lot of dressing rooms these days. When, you know, we were looking at the results earlier when Tottenham had a massive dip of about 7 or 8 games during the Champions League form. Where was it? You could argue, where was their team spirit then? They were poor in the Champions League. Then they've come out of it, confidence, enjoy. When you're winning games and playing with confidence, you're enjoying yourself. It may appear like there's more team spirit there at the same time. Team spirit really gets tested when people are making mistakes. How am I going to treat my teammate? Am I going to give him a little bit of, you know, tender loving care? or am I going to give him a rattle? You know, knowing, and that's the manager as well as the players, and people start blaming each other, and all of those aspects kick in. How do you manage that?
Well, we'll be explaining what give him a rattle means a little later on, and we'll be crossing to the red half of Manchester in a couple of minutes to see who's on Jose's shopping list. But first, here with a roundup of the other Football Whispers is James Lorenzo.
Thanks, Matthew. Yes, let's have a quick look at the top 10 whispers doing the rounds at the moment, starting with Max Gradle and a potential move from Bournemouth to Watford. The former Leeds and Leicester winger is sitting on a 3.9 to move to London after reports of the deal surfaced in The Sun and The Mirror on Tuesday afternoon. The Ivorian is apparently keen for the kind of first-team opportunities that he has found hard to come by on the south coast. As we look at whispers 6 through 10, it is Gerard Deulofeu's name which catches the eye once more. He has been heavily linked with a loan move to AC Milan. He hasn't been below an index of 2.5 for well over 2 weeks now, but it remains to be seen whether the Italian side will stump up the loan fee that Everton are looking for. Various outlets reported on Monday that Hull midfielder Jake Livermore was the subject of a £10 million bid from West Brom. His index has only risen since, and this one now sits in 8th on 3.4. But it is William Carvalho who features in my deal of the day today, and it is Manchester City who are reportedly after him. The 24-year-old is a strong defensive midfielder who has been at Sporting Lisbon for the entirety of his career and could be useful to City as protection for their back line. Well, that's all from me. I'll be back again on Tuesday. In the meantime, let's head back to the studio.
Thank you, James. Now, Jose Mourinho didn't make the start he might have wished for at the helm of Manchester United, and the City's much heralded battle of the demigods has yet to really start. Jose is having a better time of it than Pep at present, but United aren't as sharp in front of goal as their other main rivals, converting less than 1 in 8 chances when Liverpool are banging in 1 in 6. So it would seem United could do with some more power up front. These are the candidates we reckon feature on Jose's wish list, with Antoine Griezmann with a Whispers index of 3.4 the most likely import. Well, it doesn't matter what Jose says because he'll try and confuse us, but do you think he'll spend this window?
I think it does matter what Jose says. You know, a lot of managers will tell you they've got absolutely no intention of signing someone, and they'll be wandering around on the training ground behind them as they're telling you that. But Mourinho, in my experience of him, when I used to cover his period at Chelsea, he was always quite straight about transfers, and when he said no business, it usually meant no business. I think he'll definitely try for Griezmann in the summer. I know Manchester City also really keen for Griezmann, so it'll be fascinating to see how that pans out and which way he decides to cross the divide if indeed he does end up in Manchester. But I think the what Mourinho has got that Guardiola hasn't, he seems to have established a back four, a solid, certainly a solid central defensive partnership, and he may have stumbled upon Jones and Rocco rather than actually put it together himself, but that's given him the platform, and the fact now that his front four are all playing very well together, I think it means that he doesn't necessarily need to spend the money.
But is that team spirit, right? Confidence and winning games. You know, he may well have stumbled across it, but it's working. So when things are working and confidence is high and you're winning games and now you're on a roll and everyone's bubbling, you don't want to change it too much. But if he brought Griezmann in, for instance, I think he would have to play two up top because you ain't leaving either of them out. They've got to play together. And I think they could play together. That'd be a scary partnership for me. But maybe you'd have to adjust the formation slightly. But will you get Griezmann in January? Unlikely, I think.
Does the same thing apply to him, though? I called it the battle of the demigods. There is a rivalry between them, but is it fair to say that Mourinho had more of a job on? He'll be given more time, at least in the fans' eyes.
Absolutely. Mourinho had a much bigger job on. I mean, you know, Pep Guardiola was coming into us like, yeah, look, Manchester City's squad is ageing, but they hadn't fallen behind over the last 2 or 3 years as Manchester United had. So Mourinho has got a bigger job. I mean, what's quite funny about the whole situation in the last few weeks is that everyone's been tipping Manchester United as title contenders and saying City aren't, and yet City, of course, with more points than Manchester United. And so I think when you hear the two managers over the last weekend saying that the title is probably out of our reach now, I would tend to agree with that. But I think what we're also seeing is Mourinho, remember, has got lots and lots of experience of managing in the Premier League, and that's for whatever Guardiola has achieved, he's only done it in Spain and Germany. But you know, these are both leagues with 2-3 teams competing for the silverware every season, whereas Mourinho has repeatedly done it in the Premier League in 2 different spells.
United have a reputation for bringing on the youth. Is that something that Mourinho would be keen to keep doing?
He just wants to win, Matt. That's the ultimate. I mean, if there's a player there who can help him win, whether he's 18 or 28, he'll maybe put him in. Rashford gave him a problem because he'd done very well, and he had to keep that facade going along, if you like. Then he's put him out on the left. He's been out on the right. He's come in. He looks like he's got a great attitude, the lad. But then there was rumours, I think, last week of him going to Seville, maybe on loan. Because he'll want to. Once you've had a taste of it, you want to play every week. You want to be involved, and he is involved. But he's chomping at the bit to be starting, and probably would have liked to have been through the middle. And then you maybe get linked with a Griezmann coming in. What are you thinking? You're thinking, I'm going to have to go away and come back. Maybe Pogba-esque, if you like. Maybe not for as much money they'll be hoping, but maybe just go on loan this time. Don't sell him, right? And then we'll bring him back when he scored 100 goals over in Spain, and he's really at it. A bit like the goalkeeper at Chelsea. What they did with him. He went to Atletico Madrid, came back. Didn't really want to come at the time. It was a struggle to get him back. Came back, and he's been brilliant ever since. So, that would be an option. But Griezmann would be a player I'd want. I like him.
Well, if you've been with us since the January window opened, you'll know exactly how Football Whispers works. If you haven't, and why haven't you? Here's a brief guide. Now, there are some clubs for whom relegation and titles are never really on the agenda, but there is an art to maintaining a steady place in the world's richest league, and it involves making full use of the transfer window. Burnley and Middlesbrough would love to rely on a mid-table position. The Clarets are currently in 10th, but even so, they couldn't hang on to Chelsea loanee Patrick Bamford, who last night went back to Borough, where he'd also once been on loan.
Well, it is their prerogative to do that. It's part of the contract that was agreed. So that's just the way it goes.
When he left, I told him that the door it'll be open always for him. So again, let's see.
So Borough have made their first buy of the window. What about the other middle-ranking teams? We've had a look back at how 4 of them spent in the last 3 Januaries. Historically, Everton have invested the most. And in fact, only West Brom stand out for keeping a firm hold on the purse strings. But that may be about to change, seeing as they've never been in this position before. So you're in mid-table, Tom. Let's say you're West Brom. In fact, you're doing rather better than mid-table at the moment. Is the onus, do you have to spend to maintain that position?
Not at all, no. I think there's going to be 1 or 2 clubs, and I'm thinking Watford particularly, they may look at it and think that their form has been a little bit patchy. There's always a club, isn't there, that sinks like a stone in the second half of the season, and Watford, looking at the way they were coming into the Christmas period, would be my prime candidate for that. Now, I think to take a club like West Brom, who have completely overachieved, they had all the problems with Tony Pulis at the start of the season. Would he stay? Was he going to leave? And yet, I think they've surprised us all, haven't they, with how well they've done, but also how well they've played. So I would think there'll be 1 or 2 clubs who will look at it like West Brom and think, the new ownership's come in. Let's just sit tight. We may bring 1 player in, but we can sit tight until the summer. Whereas teams like Watford, I think you'll see having to get quite busy to make sure that, as I say, that bad patch of form that they suffered before Christmas ends in the next few weeks.
Is there a case that you could spend and actually get yourself into trouble? I'm thinking about that team spirit thing.
Yeah.
Bring someone in, we were doing all right.
No, you can do. If it's going along nicely, I mean, a manager might identify, as Tom said, 1 position maybe where you think, I need someone just there, whether it's for cover, whether it's to go straight in, and the team can live with 1 change, can't it? Because the other players will be thinking, well, that's improved us. So they buy into it then. So there's no problem with team spirit. The only person who's a little bit down in the dumps is a player that's getting replaced. And I've been on both sides of that, so I understand how that feels both ways. So that very little will be done when you're going along well. But I agree, Watford are in a little bit of free fall. Deeney can't score. Igalo's disappeared this season. Amrabat's decent on the right, lively and quick. But generally, they possibly only need a goal and a couple of results and they could go again. But when it's not like that, sometimes you look to bring someone in to freshen it up, to liven it up, to make an impact and try and get your season going again.
Well, looking at the other way, I mean, you're doing all right, but if you spend, there's no excuse in a way that the fans can't have a go at you because you have tried.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the balance to strike, isn't it? I mean, Ronald Koeman's the fascinating one for me because he's got the Mashiri money now. The money has come into the club. There can be no excuses about Everton not having the money to spend. He's already been out and bought Morgan Schneidlin. I think they perhaps overpaid for Schneidlin a little bit, given the fact that he's not really had a look in at Manchester United, or certainly not kicked on to the levels we thought he would. Everton are a strange position at the moment, aren't they, where they really could push themselves up and thrust themselves up to get onto the coattails of that European pack. But I think they still need at least 2 players. And I think Koeman's identified 5 positions that he feels he needs strengthening as well. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes in the next couple of weeks.
Because the thing is, we're calling them mid-table and saying, yeah, you're fine because you're not going to go down. But how difficult is it for them to spend and get themselves into the top 4?
Well, again, I mean, Ross Barkley's a conundrum, isn't he? Because, you know, a lot of players look at him and think he should be in England's team, he should be doing better. Koeman, there's an unease between them two, and he doesn't do enough, and he's not productive enough for Koeman. And, you know, does he sell him if he gets a great offer? Does he persevere with him, hoping he can turn him into the player that he thinks he could be? You know, Schneidlin, we spoke about it on here last couple of weeks. He was ripe for that move. You know, I think he's always going to have to pay a decent fee to get him out of Manchester United, just from Manchester United's point of view. And he was a perfect part of the jigsaw for me. In that position, Gareth Barry's getting on a bit. And, you know, they needed to improve that area of the pitch and have more competition in that area of the pitch. You know, will they keep Lukaku? That's another thing that's been mentioned, going out the club. So, and what are the positions, the 5 positions, if there are 5 positions he's looking to strengthen, what are they? Leighton Baines is getting on a bit, hasn't quite been as effective down the left-hand side. Does he need another centre-half? So he's got the money, and if he's identified the players that he thinks can improve them, he'll go and get them, I would think. But it's no good just buying for the sake of buying.
He's also in a funny position as well, given the result against Manchester City and the way the lad Davis performed, having recently come into the team. Lookman as well, and You've got young Mason Holgate in the heart of the defence, who I know a lot of people think he has got the potential to be even better than John Stones. So does he actually, you know, has that solved the problem? Of course, Paul mentions Lukaku as well. He's going to want to see investment because he's going to want people to be coming to the club that can take them on to win the thing. So it's a big balance for Koeman.
A lot of people felt that he was making a point when he put the youngsters in, that saying this is how thin we are on the ground, I'm having to put all the youngsters in. But they've actually come in and done great, and I love the fact that they've done great. But you'll have the same problem with them. You buy players in and they slide out of the reckoning maybe, and then you've got they're unhappy. They need to go on loan. So there's that's the whole part of being able to manage a football club and do it well and get results at the same time. And that's his dilemma. How much does he change it?
Paul, thanks very much. Tom, good to see you. Well, that's about it for now. Remember, we want to hear from you and get your thoughts on the whispers around the world of football. Get in touch via Facebook, via our Facebook page, or on Twitter at FB_whispers. In the meantime, we'll keep those whispers coming and see you for our next show next Wednesday, the 25th. See you then.